One afternoon, as the sun slowly set behind the deserted fields, Joe, a simple farmer, was immersed in his daily routine. However, the peace was suddenly disturbed by the presence of a panicked-looking woman standing beside her broken-down car on the side of the road. Without hesitation, Joe sincerely offered to help, never imagining that this small step would be the beginning of a series of events that would change his life forever. As the woman walked into his barn, Joe had no idea that fate had just knocked on the door of his life. Hello everyone, welcome to Stories to Heal. Today I am happy to share a new story with you. Don't forget to subscribe and watch to the end. Joe, a dedicated farmer, is busy with his daily routine. With his deft hands, he milks one of his cows in the barn. Joe's life is simple but full of meaning. He lives on this large farm with his beloved wife, Alice, and their two sweet daughters. Joe is a 42-year-old man who was born and raised on this farm. The only child of a tenacious farming couple, Joe has known life in the field since childhood. He grew up playing with livestock, helping his father fix farm equipment, and learning the value of hard work from his parents. Joe's parents may not have been wealthy, but they made sure that Joe got a good education. Every morning, his father patiently drove Joe to school, which was quite far away because school buses never went through their neighborhood. When Joe graduated from high school, his parents had high hopes that he would go to college and become a successful businessman. Although Joe's heart was set on farming, he didn't want to disappoint his parents. With a heavy heart, Joe chose to major in business administration. For years, he lived a corporate life, working for a large company in the city. But even though the salary was enough to live comfortably, Joe felt empty. Life behind an office desk didn't bring him the same joy as herding cows or fixing tractor engines in the fields. Finally, after 5 years of working, Joe made a big decision. He quit his job and returned to the family farm. The decision made him nervous. He was afraid he would disappoint his parents. But the opposite happened. Joe's parents were proud that their son had the courage to follow his heart. Not long after, the trials began. Joe's father died of an illness. His mother followed 3 years later. The loss of both parents made Joe feel lonely, but the presence of Alice, his lover who later became his wife, gave him strength. He and Alice raised a small family on the farm. Although their relationship was full of love and happiness, life was not always easy. Running a farm was not easy because it took a lot of money to keep everything running. On the other hand, Alice's income as a teacher was often not enough to meet the family's needs. But despite the challenges they faced, Joe and Alice never gave up. They always tried their best, believing in their hearts that their hard work and sacrifice would bear sweet fruit in the future. One afternoon, Joe was busy with his daily routine of milking in the barn. The atmosphere was calm and peaceful. Only the faint sound of cows neighing could be heard, until suddenly the silence was broken by a loud, frustrated scream. The sound came from the direction of the small road that crossed the front of his farm. Filled with curiosity mixed with a little concern, Joe immediately stopped what he was doing and went outside to see what was going on. As he reached the barn door, his eyes fell on a young woman, probably in her early 30s, standing next to her car with a desperate look on her face. The hood of the car was wide open, indicating that there was a problem that made the woman feel very confused and frustrated. Joe approached cautiously, taking in the situation carefully before speaking. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked in a gentle tone, trying to show his good intentions. The woman, who seemed to be facing a major problem, turned to him with a frustrated expression on her face. "Does this look okay to you?" he said in a high-pitched voice that clearly reflected his deep annoyance. In a matter of seconds, however, he seemed to realize that his anger was directed at a completely innocent person, the man who had offered to help. "I'm sorry," he said, taking a deep breath and trying to calm himself. "I'm really upset. This car just broke down in a place like this, in the middle of nowhere, with no one around to help." Joe smiled a little. Bad days can happen at any time. "I'm Joe, and I live on the farm," he said, pointing to his big field. "If you don't mind, can I take a look at the problem? I might be able to help." The woman hesitated. "You're a farmer. Do you know how to fix a car?" Joe chuckled. "More than you think. My dad taught me how to fix old engines." After thinking for a moment, the woman nodded. "Okay, go ahead and try it." Joe carefully opened the hood and began to inspect some parts that he thought might be faulty or damaged. He checked each component carefully, making sure everything was in good condition. A few minutes later, when he felt confident enough, he asked the woman, who eventually introduced herself as Celine, to try to start the car and see if there was any difference. Celine, who was a little hesitant and looked confused, slowly got into the car and turned the key in the ignition. Soon after, the sound of the engine came to life, indicating that the problem had been solved. "Oh my God!" The car started. Celine exclaimed happily, "Thank you so much, Joe. You really saved my day." Joe smiled. "You're welcome. Happy to help." Celine seemed touched by Joe's kindness. "You must be thirsty after all this. Would you like to come in for a while? We have some cold drinks in the house," Joe offered. Celine hesitated at first, but her curiosity about farm life made her accept the offer. When they arrived at the house, Alice greeted them with a warm smile. "You're just in time," she said. "Lunch is just about ready." After enjoying lunch together, Joe and Alice took Celine on a tour of the farm, patiently showing her every nook and cranny. Celine seemed very impressed with the way Joe and Alice cared for their animals. But the biggest surprise came as Celine was preparing to leave the farm. She quietly took a check out of her pocket and gave it to Joe and Alice as a token of her sincere gratitude. "What is this?" Joe asked, obviously confused. "A gift," Celine replied calmly. "I want you to use this gift to make your lives easier. I know that running this farm is not an easy job." Although Joe and Alice hesitated and refused at first, Celine insisted with full confidence. "You have shown sincere kindness to a stranger like me without expecting anything in return. Let me repay your kindness." With hearts filled with emotion, Joe and Alice finally accepted the check. When they saw the amount on the check, they were shocked and stunned. It was enough to fix up their entire ranch and make it even better than before. After Celine left, Joe and Alice hugged each other tightly, tears streaming down their cheeks, but they were tears of pure joy. "It's like a dream," Alice whispered, unable to believe what had just happened. "No, it's real," Joe replied, trying to convince himself that it was all true. In the weeks that followed, the money Celine had left them was used to buy new machinery, expand their already large barn, and increase the number of animals they were raising. What was once a farm full of struggles and challenges has now been transformed into a place of prosperity and hope. Joe's life story teaches us a valuable lesson. Selfless kindness, sincerely offered, can create unexpected miracles. When we help others wholeheartedly, life has a unique way of returning all the kindness we give in extraordinary and miraculous ways. Like this story? Click like and subscribe for more stories, and share your thoughts with a word in the comments section.